Okay, we're here to do a top 20 list of the Samuel L. Jackson, his top 20 movies. So we're going to start off the list with number 20. I just put the Star Wars trilogy at number 20. Not a huge fan of Star Wars. I mean, do you have anything interesting to offer in terms of Samuel L. Jackson's association with it?
I think he really, it seems like he likes these types of movies. He likes adventure movies. He likes movies that are really, entertaining. And look, I mean, say what you want about that Star Wars prequel trilogy. I've seen it.
You're not a huge fan of it, right?
It definitely doesn't have the best writing and the best dialogue, but you could tell he had a lot of fun with it. And the way his death scene in the third one is actually hilarious. Actually, they give him a pretty dramatic death scene. It's pretty funny. So yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan, but.
And you just mentioned that you could see him paying homage to some of the movies he grew up watching as to why he was interested in taking on that role, right?
Right. It was some of the adventure movies, sword fighting movies, stuff like that, yeah.
Okay, at number 19, we got Snakes on a Plane. He was just talking about this in that piece you showed me about popcorn movies. Would this kind of fit that?
Yeah, he did this on CBS Sunday Morning. They just did a really great piece on him. So that's great. That's awesome. But I saw this movie with some people back when I was in college, and I have to say I didn't care for this one personally.
Snakes on a Plane.
This was.
Well, we kind of knew what it was going to be. Right. Like as soon as you saw the title, it's because like, what's up with these motherfucking snakes on the motherfucking plane?
Yeah, right? which everybody laughs at that moment. But that's the thing. That buzz was created by the people before the movie. On the internet, him saying something like that, and then that's kind of why the movie built so much traction.
It's kind of got like a cult following too. I mean, it did pretty well,
It did pretty well, but he even said when it came out, he said not as many people went to see it as all the people who made all the noise about it on the internet.
Oh wow, okay.
It's true.
So it was more something people talked about than something that people actually went to
because
go see.
The idea of him delivering that line. In fact, my understanding was that they were going to call it a completely different title. It was going to be like Flight 451 or something like that. And once the internet had all this buzz about him saying these things about snakes.
Yeah.
Then because they motherfucking snakes. Then they changed it to Snakes on a Plane.
Okay, number 18, we got Resurrecting the Champ. You watched a little bit of this. I watched the whole thing, but Josh Hartnett, he actually plays a journalist, and he finds this homeless guy, and the homeless guy, Samuel Jackson, lies to him and basically says that he used to be Kenny Saddlefield, like this famous fighter back in the day. But when he did the story on him, he almost got sued because it wasn't the real guy. So he found himself in some trouble. But, the whole moral to the story is that you shouldn't lie, because he was lying to his son that he knew John Elway because he was a Denver journalist in Denver. That's where John Elway played. So that was kind of like the whole theme of it. It was just, not to lie. But eventually you do learn that Samuel Jackson was a fighter. It just wasn't the guy that, Josh Hartnett thought that he was. But it was pretty dope. Yeah. You can see a lot of similarities with this character compared to the role he's doing now with Apple TV, the guy that plays dementia. It's almost like the most similar movie compared to that.
Yeah. And I would say roles like this, usually we're used to seeing Sam Jackson in roles where he has a powerful presence, or he's trying to gain back a powerful presence. Yeah. And he has to kind of control is a big thing for a lot of his characters. But then this one, it's almost like, there's that element, but he has an element of weakness that he usually doesn't have it because he's homeless and he's old. He
can't remember his name. Yeah, he thinks he's somebody that he's not. It's just it's pretty sad. But number 17, you could talk about this one. We got True Romance at number 17. What do you remember about Samuel L. Jackson's character?
Well, he has a very small role in True Romance. That's just a great movie, but it's the first time he's, delivering Quentin Tarantino dialogue.
Yeah, that's why I put it on the list.
Yeah.
He's actually playing the guy that told Tarantino the story of the Sicilians.
Okay, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
same name. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is he that told Tarantino the Sicilian story?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I had no idea. That's crazy. Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
something.
but no, but yeah,
But it's a small role.
But
It's a small
apparently,
role.
Samuel Jackson's dialogue was so raunchy. I think he was talking about pussy eating, which is like the worst thing you could talk about. So they were actually thinking about making this an NC-17 rating because of his dialogue. Do you remember that?
Yes, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they cut that from the film, right? Or is that still in the original
I think it's in the version that's on the anthology.
Okay.
But who knows? Maybe if you go back and watch the movie in 1993 in the theater,
Yeah.
maybe there was a different version.
Yeah, I eat this, I eat that, I eat every, I eat the whole freaking thing. Yeah, no, I remember that. Sure.
Okay.
It's a raunchy movie, you know.
Okay, number
great
16, we got. I hadn't watched this since 1996 when it came out, but I remember this being a lot of fun. The Great White Hype. He basically plays like Don King in this movie. But yeah, I just remember the whole movie just being a lot of fun.
Yeah, Damon Wayans cracked me up actually.
He's like, yeah, I'm in shape, I'm round.
Yeah.
How many people bit that line from Damon Wayans?
I love the shot when Damon Wayans he's running. You think he's working out, but he's actually
for
running.
the ice cream truck,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Exactly. I love that. But Sam Jack, this is one of those kind of like Ordell related characters.
Yeah, this is him just cashing in on Pulp Fiction like those next couple of years. Seemed like he was doing everything from like 94 to 98. All right, number 15, we got Coach Carter. You know what? You would think Samuel Jackson in a basketball movie would be amazing. I wasn't that crazy about Coach Carter. I really wasn't.
I wasn't loving it either. Yeah, but it's very popular and a lot of people know of it. It was very well known movie. But personally, it didn't resonate. Yeah,
I just don't think that's him. Kind of like the basketball coach that stands for morals and principles. Like I think this is kind of like a weaker version of Remember the Titans. I just think Denzel's a much better fit for this role. Like Denzel even said, if it wasn't acting, he'd be coaching. I don't think you could say the same thing about Samuel Jackson.
I could see that with Denzel. I could definitely say Denzel fits that role.
He got game really well. Great, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
And he was coaching his son.
Yeah.
Okay, number 14, you're going to have to help me out with this one. Black Snake Moan. I know a lot of porno movies had some fun with this parody of these titles, but what did you think of Black Snake Moan, looking back on it?
I really loved this movie when it came out, and I watched it a few times after. I think he's great in it. I think he might be a little over dramatic at times, which is the biggest criticism of him, is maybe overdoing it. But Christina Ricci's great. Justin Timberlake, although not a great actor, I think puts a lot of effort in this movie. In terms of what he's trying to play a soldier with PTSD. And Christina Ricci is sexy, but it's this dark sort of toxic sexuality that this movie, because it's dealing with abuse,
Right.
And so Samuel Jackson becomes sort of a father figure mentor toward Christina Ricci, and he tries to help her. But first he has to chain her up to a radiator, and it's a very dark movie.
I remember that.
But it's also very entertaining, and there's a lot of good music in it too. A lot of really good music. So I definitely recommend this one. I always enjoyed this one. It's by the same guy who directed Hustle and Flow, which was a big time movie back in the day.
That was his follow up to Hustle and Flow, right?
That was his follow up. Yeah.
Okay, number 13. I don't think you saw this one. I actually watched this on HBO Max during the summertime. But Samuel Jackson plays a rich black doctor in this movie, and his daughters catch him cheating on the mother. And yeah, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this storyline before. And ultimately, he ends up dying because he has this fascination with just hooking up with these women. And this one guy, a Spike Lee actor, I can't remember his name. It's the guy that drove Ray Allen around in the car, and he got game. He ends up killing Samuel Jackson to get revenge for sleeping with his girlfriend. So yeah, it's just a story of a rich doctor that just loves to screw around and is never home. And it's sad, but I found it pretty engaging, though. He's really not the star of the movie. It's really the daughter. It's actually the girl from The Great Debaters who's actually plays the daughter, if you remember The Great Debaters with Denzel. Number 12, we got Fresh. Now, this is a movie I wanted to see again. I saw clips on YouTube, but the funny thing is Samuel Jackson was actually filming Fresh when he was auditioning for Pulp Fiction. So that was crazy. But yeah, Fresh is a cool movie. They kind of compare chess to real life. There's a lot of metaphors in terms of chess and reality here, but yeah, it just deals with the crack era, about how the getting out of the bad neighborhoods and the crack era in New York City is like almost like a chess game. How do you get out of it? And yeah, I just remember he had some really powerful speeches when he was talking to I believe it was his son. I mean, do you remember anything about Fresh?
I'm sorry, I haven't seen this one.
It's not accessible. Like, it's not on any streaming service.
Wow. Yeah,
I mean, they got clips on YouTube, but there's not much.
It puts him in once again kind of that mentor role.
Yeah,
because I always remember that, and I'm always kind of attracted to the storyline, and he's good at that because he didn't break through in his career until he was older, until after his mid-30s. So a lot of people don't realize, how...
here he's actually in his mid-40s.
Yeah, so by the time he does Pulp Fiction
he's
and
like
Fresh...
44, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That just goes to show, that's an inspiring thing. He wasn't a star until he was in his mid-40s. He went a long time before he became a star. That's really... But I think it speaks to that, those mentor roles are really good for him because he is older, but he still somehow looks young. I don't know how he does that.
Okay, at number 11, I got the combination of Unbreakable from 1995, I believe, or 2000 actually. I think Unbreakable came out in 2000.
And stuck in 95.
Yeah, and then we got Glass, which Glass is like the sequel, about 20 years later. I think 2019 to be exact. But what really, I didn't really appreciate how defined the character was until I saw the parody of Anthony Davis dressed up as Samuel L. Jackson with the gray hair. Because because Anthony Davis always gets hurt, so he's like Samuel L. Jackson in Glass.
Right.
So, but But yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, he had these really bad injuries. He's like a cripple, but at the same time, he was very powerful. And I believe in Glass, he was like trying to end the world, but Glass was kind of a mess. But I have this on the list because of how I think he really did a great job with the actual character. That's why I have it on the list. I mean, do you remember anything about Unbreakable? You didn't see Glass, but you saw Unbreakable, right?
Very different character for both Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis, being created at a time when, say what you want about M. Night Shyamalan's movies, he's had some duds, but there was a point in M. Night Shyamalan's career where he was doing something very unique, and he had kind of his own unique voice in the, it's not horror, but it's almost like dark folklore type of drama. He's very, he's got a very different mind, and some of his movies don't work for me and some of them do. And this is a unique movie with unique roles for both Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson. And this is kind of one of the more unique ones. Yeah. For him. So yeah, I would recommend it because it's just different. And with all the super movies that came out after this, it's kind of ironic that this was, you don't know it when you first watch it, but it is about a superhero and a supervillain.
Right.
And it's weird, but it works. It works.
Well, I will say this, though. Don't expect Die Hard with a Vengeance Part 2 in terms of Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis dialogue.
No, in fact, it's like you forget that they were in that movie because it's so different.
So you're right. They're very, very different.
It's so different.
But I will say this: it was. I thought it was really cool how they blended in Unbreakable and Split and kind of made a sequel of both movies. I thought that was actually really cool.
That's cool.
It's probably like one of the most stunning things I think I've ever seen. Was I think when you see Bruce Willis at the end of Split, it's kind of like, oh man, this is gonna lead to a sequel.
Yeah, because Split was a good movie.
All right, number 10. Here's your baby, The Hateful Eight. What do you think of Sam Jackson in Hateful Eight? Do you think it was a little bit too over the top? I wouldn't say it was his best Quentin Tarantino role, but at the same time, I still felt like he had his moments. And
I think I love the character, and I love his interplay with him and Chris Mannix, the Confederate soldier. You have a black Union soldier with a white. A white Confederate soldier former Confederate soldier, because this movie takes place 15 to 20 years after the Civil War, and so
the Abraham Lincoln letter, right?
The Abraham Lincoln letter. I think that's one of the strongest elements of the film. I love the interactions, the character interactions and dialogue between Sam Jackson and Kurt Russell, Sam Jackson and Walton Goggins is just awesome. I do agree. There's some moments. It's not just Sam Jackson. I think
I think the only criticism, I like the character. I thought he was great in the movie. I think the only criticism I would have is I think he oversold some of the gunshots. Maybe.
Yeah. No,
it's like, oh fuck.
It went a little crazy. Yeah, no, I think it risks being over dramatic because it's such a contained movie. Most of the movie is contained between four walls with these people, and so it comes off being very over dramatic. But I do enjoy the movie, and I do enjoy some of his moments. But yes, I agree. Toward the end, there things are a little bit over the top. Yes.
And I will say this. I would say this movie, it's probably the closest thing you ever see to him trying to replicate Denzel from Training Day. Like, especially the interaction with the old man. What was his name? Withers?
No, you're just thinking of old man Withers. You're talking Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern, yeah. You know, the flashback scene with with his son. The way he was talking down to him, I found it his version of Denzel talking down to maybe the street kids in the street.
Okay, sure, yeah. That was reversed of him talking down to him and white people talking down to him. Is like here he is reversing it.
Yeah,
you know? That's what that was all about. So.
Okay, number 9. I'm not sure if you're familiar with The Negotiator. So it's Samuel Jackson and Kevin Spacey as the negotiators. So Samuel Jackson is a negotiator, but he gets in trouble. So he's actually set up. Mm-hmm. So he actually takes everybody hostage, and he actually requests that Kevin Spacey is actually his negotiator.
Yeah.
So I thought this was cool, but it's one of those like inside job movies where they set him up.
It's a good thriller. It really is a good. It's a good thriller. You said it was a long movie. It's very long, but not too long. Yeah. But it definitely it's intense. It's an intense movie with some good actors, good supporting actors, and I think Paul Giamatti's in it if I'm not mistaken. And this one's a good like '90s feel. I don't know if it came out in '90s, but it
came out in 1998.
Yeah, perfect. Like it fits that time really well. Late '90s action movie, action thriller. No, it's a good one.
I would say this in terms of the Samuel Jackson catalog. I don't know if there's ever been. The dialogue between him and Kevin Spacey, I don't know if he's ever done a better job of playing off of someone in a more serious tone than Kevin Spacey. It was just good, solid acting where you could just take everything serious. You could buy into everything.
I think the only thing I kind of struggle with characters like this with him, and you're right, I do agree. I think
he's just trying to prove his innocence the whole movie.
I think Kevin Spacey is really good, and despite his his stuff outside in his real life, he was actually very good in this movie. And the interchange between them over the walkie-talkies, over the phone is great. What I struggle with characters like this, it feels like we're supposed to be sympathetic towards Sam Jackson, and I always want to root for him because he's cool and that he's badass, and so I have to kind of flip my brain and say, okay, I'm not just rooting for him because he's cool. Now I'm rooting for him because he's a good guy. That's a little harder for me to get on board for, so I sometimes struggle with that, but this is an example of one of those characters where we're supposed to be sympathetic toward him as he's trying to prove his innocence.
This is definitely not a popcorn movie. This is one of those movies where you really have to, put some thought into why they tried to set him up. But the funny thing is, Redman had a really funny line. Chris Sabian is the name of Kevin Spacey's character, and he had a line where he said, "No negotiators, not even Chris Sabian, can save your life." And so I think that's always a sign of a good movie when you could reference it in a punchline. So
it was a good movie. It was a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So number 8, Long Kiss Goodnight. I think this is actually Samuel Jackson's favorite movie with Gina Davis from Beetlejuice.
Yeah. And it doesn't surprise me that it's his favorite movie. You know why? It's just fun. It's a fun movie.
It's like a date movie.
It's got a great. Well, I don't know about
popcorn
all.
movie,
I don't
date
know about
movie.
all that. I mean, maybe, but it is definitely certain. I think you take it depends on the date. You know, I think if your date is into, you know, this. What I love about this movie is it really is just a lot of fun. And Gina Davis is incredible, and he's great in it. It's directed by Shane Black, who is actually one of my favorite writer-directors because he knows how to have a great time with his movies, but still have a serious story. I really do. I think this movie is going to get better with age. There are some really over-the-top, ridiculous moments that I'm sure Siskel and Ebert tore apart in their review. I mean, I'm talking ridiculous, like car explosion type stuff, but that's the thing. If you're into that, you're going to have a great time with it. It really is a lot of fun. It's a fun movie. I enjoy it. So.
Okay, number 7, we got a Time to Kill. Obviously, this is a very racially themed movie where Samuel L. Jackson's daughter gets taken advantage of, and he retaliates and ends up killing the
guys who killed his daughter.
His daughter, yeah,
Right,
and then he has to go to jail
did
for
they
it.
kill her, or did they just did they?
No, they didn't kill her. They
Okay.
just they raped her and kind of beat her up.
Right. This is a time to kill. This is the plot of a time.
Yeah,
to
but so he spends a lot of the movie in jail. Matthew McConaughey, that's the lawyer. He's trying to get him out of jail. But the heart of the movie is actually the relationship between Matthew McConaughey and Sandra Bullock for the most part. Samuel Jackson's more of a supporting actor. I think he has some great lines when he's actually in the courtroom.
Yeah,
but
he's great in it.
He's
though.
great. Yeah, the little amount of time that he has on screen, he's amazing.
He's really good, and I didn't even finish the second half of this movie with you. I need to finish it because he was really good in this. They did a great job with him playing this father. He's the father of must be 4 or 5 kids down south. You know, poor black family, and you know he's just. I just thought he was great in this. He fit this really well. And maybe it's because they don't have him on screen. He doesn't have to command that much of the movie, you know.
Yeah.
But I liked his role. And I don't know if you knew Matthew McConaughey. This is like his first breakout thing.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of, you know, those Hollywood stories of there were like 3 or 4 other people that were going to play the role, and then someone dropped out, and he was going to play a smaller role.
Yeah.
And then they cast McConaughey in this more leading role, and this was huge. No,
I remember. I remember we went to see this in the theaters, and I think we barely even got in. It was packed. But yeah, Sam just had there were some really emotional scenes when he was in jail with Matthew McConaughey, and then I just remember the courtroom scene was very emotional as well. I think he does get off at the end of the movie.
Oh, that's
he doesn't.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was
awesome.
at the time in the deep south, it was huge.
Yeah.
You know. So number 6, we got Rules of Engagement.
I remember this movie with him and Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones, yes.
Right. Yeah.
And I forget the other actor's name. The guy who kind of reminds you of John Leguizamo. The reason I have the movie so high is, he actually ordered the troops to go ahead and kill. And then at the end of the movie, he's on trial for murder. He's like, and then he finally admits to it. He's like, yeah, I said it. I said, waste the motherfuckers.
Because civilians were shooting at American soldiers. Civilians had taken up arms and started shooting American soldiers. And so once he saw that they were shooting at his men, he decided. But some of those civilians who got shot, the difficulty.
They were innocent
some
people,
of them were
yeah.
innocent
Yes,
people,
that was
and so that's why he was on trial for murder. And he says, "Waste the motherfuckers." And there's this is a really good role.
Well, when you're talking about Samuel Jackson's best scenes involving tension, I think this has got to be up there with the best of them.
when he's testifying.
Maybe other than the Tim Roth scene from Pulp Fiction. I would actually put this at number 2.
You're saying when he's testifying?
When he's testifying at the end of the movie.
And he says, I said waste. He screams at it. I said waste the motherfuckers. Because the tension that builds up to that. And that harks back to, the tension, how you have to give credit to A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, that scene toward the end of the movie, because that actually is very similar, like with the way they build the tension to him saying that. So you can't help but think of that. But it was very good. No,
I can see how he was inspired by that.
He's great. He's good. I agree.
And number 5, Django Unchained. I want to say he plays the house Negro. I guess that's what you would call him in this.
Yes, absolutely. No way for two white people on a video to talk about this movie without tiptoeing around a lot of different words and names. But
he was great in this though. Like his dialogue to what's the girl's name again? The black girl, the girl that's Jamie Foxx goes to rescue.
Broomhilda. The character, I don't know the actress's name, but Kerry Washington.
Kerry Washington, yeah. The way Samuel Jackson talks to her, it's like, you know that.
Yeah.
Those were the scenes where Tarantino actually told Sam, he said, just act black. He said, like you don't have to follow the script word for word.
Tarantino said that?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, that sets up a whole bunch of red flags. But the funny thing is that Sam Jackson, he's a competitive person. He is. He's very driven, and he said he wanted to play Django. And Tarantino said,
he's just too old.
You're too old to play Django. You can't. This is not that you're not at that point in your career. You're not going to play Django. But he said he wanted to play Django.
It's like late 60s.
Which makes sense. I love Jamie Foxx as Django. Actually, I really enjoy him as Django. I think it's great. But no, Sam Jackson, that first shot of him on the top of the plantation, and he's staring at Django, and they do that close up of his face. This is one of the
the fucked up thing about Django is he's probably the most racist person in the movie against his own people.
Right, because he's established himself. It's not he doesn't care about the suffering of any of the other blacks around him, as long as he has his status. And so it really is the ultimate. It's really the worst thing that it's the worst thing. And it makes sense that toward the end, the final face-off is between Django and Sam Jackson. It's between Django and Sam Jackson's character, not Django and DiCaprio's character.
Dies before
right. It makes a lot of sense, because that's the worst thing, that you could do is just, give up your race. You don't care about what the suffering of your people, but you have this status. You only care about yourself. It's the worst thing. So.
And number 4, we got Changing Lanes, featuring Ben Affleck and Samuel Jackson. Samuel Jackson plays Doyle Gibson. So they actually have an accident at the beginning of the show. Ben Affleck's trying to get to court, and so he's running late. But, Samuel Jackson actually ends up taking a file that Ben Affleck leaves behind. And Ben tries the whole movie to try to get this file back, and he just can't get it back. And, Samuel Jackson was going to court to get the custody of his kid, so he can't get that time back. So the whole movie, they're just ripping at each other's throats, and they cause each other so much harm that they end up becoming friends at the end of the movie. I thought the movie was great. It really makes you sympathize with, the Doyle Gibson character. He had his credits stolen from him, and then he's trying to, deflate Ben Affleck's tires. It's really an exhausting ride of a movie.
Yeah.
But by the end of the movie, you just, it takes you. It's one of those movies where it takes place just in one day, but it takes you like on such a ride.
I have to admit, sometimes this movie.
But you're not a big fan of this.
Well,
I think I like it better than you, actually.
I think the movie makes me nervous. Because it feels so realistic that could happen. It happens to people all the time. They get into a fender bender on on their way to work or whatever, and then their whole freaking day, and in this case, their whole both their lives get upended because of a fender bender. It's so it's very it's very.
Well, I'll tell you, Ben Affleck's character, he's such a prick for like the first part of the movie, though, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like all he cares about is just getting this file signed, and then they actually forged the signature, and they risked the whole firm risked their reputations.
Right. This is a very real world character for Sam Jackson, because in some of these movies he can just smack people around, be a badass, and like can't be touched. In this, anytime he tries to be that way, it backfires, and like the real world kicks him in the ass, and I hate that. He ends up going to jail, because of, one thing or another. It's like, like that's not supposed to happen to Sam Jackson. So I think there's a part of me that wants to see Sam Jackson just be badass, but he can't be because he's not. It's much more realistic. But it's a good movie. I think Ben Affleck and Sam Jackson are a good combination.
No, they were, yeah. All right, number 3, we got Jackie Brown. In this movie, Samuel Jackson plays a gun dealer. His name is Ordell Robbie. Ordellrobbii.
Yes.
I thought this was great. I mean, it's tough to even rank these last 3, but in some ways, the character in Jackie Brown it's a little bit more. I would say he's more likable than the Pulp Fiction character, but he's a worse person though. Mm-hmm. Like all he cares about is making money from selling guns, and he'll do anything. He'll do anything in the world to keep doing that, even if it means killing his own people, his own friends.
He doesn't have the redemption that the character in Pulp Fiction has, but in this one,
he's more fun.
He's more likable.
More
He's more clever. He's more suave. And that's part of his thing.
He's likable as long as he's making his money.
As long as he's making.
Like you can sit on the couch, you can have fun, you can smoke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As long as business is good.
See my blonde hair,
and he has control of the people around him that he has. Then yes. So absolutely, man. We can go on forever about. Jackie Brown.
We've talked about Jackie Brown in other Tarantino videos, but I've always said this.
Love Jackie
I
Brown.
think Samuel Jackson's acting in the scene with De Niro when he kills him, he has this look on his face.
Yeah.
Where it's very believable. Like how did you fuck up my money? And he's like the look of frustration in his face. I think that's some of the best acting he's ever done.
He was in his zone at this time in the mid to late '90s. He was in his zone. He really was. He really was.
He's like, you gonna tell me the reason you lost every goddamn cent I have in the world? Let me tell you the reason, motherfucker, is. The reason is you ain't worth the shit no more. Hey, you better back off.
Two great actors. Yeah. The tension. And the way he shoots it. Tarantino shoots it behind the truck. In the truck. Great, awesome. Go see Jackie Brown if you haven't seen it. God damn it! Oh my God, what a good.
Samuel Jackson's only gripe is he thought Ordell was a little bit too smart for how he got killed, and I kind of agree with that. I kind of hate the way he gets killed too, but
it's a little the movie had to come to an end. That's the only thing about it. It's a little underwhelming the way he dies. Yeah.
But there's no way to end the movie with him surviving, so you definitely do understand it. Number 2. We got Die Hard with a Vengeance. I'll tell you this, this is my first experience with Samuel Jackson. The first time I really ever heard of him was he was actually hosting a top 20 MTV music video countdown, and he was trying to promote the movie at the same time. Uh-huh. And so Die Hard 3 was the first Die Hard I've ever seen. I saw Pulp Fiction. Wait, no, had I seen Pulp Fiction yet? No, I hadn't seen Pulp Fiction yet. But I was just blown away by Sam's character in this. He kind of plays like a nerdy electrician, but he definitely has like a hardcore edge to him. And I just thought the dialogue between him and Bruce Willis was just, I've always felt like their chemistry was, unparalleled. I'd even put it above Travolta and Jackson's chemistry. I know you won't probably disagree with that, but I just loved it.
Yeah.
You talk about this movie too much, though, right?
No. I mean, you know what? I mean, it really. I remember being in high school. This is 10 years later, my senior year, and I remember the freshmen were talking about how much they loved Die Hard with a Vengeance. So they were 14 in 2005, talking about a movie that came out when they were 4. I mean, this movie has been, because it gets played a lot on TV and cable, and so. Honestly, can't give him a better compliment. Sam Jackson, revived the Die Hard franchise. I mean, I know that sounds.
He really did.
He did. I'm sorry.
And they were filming this when Pulp Fiction was hot.
Every time, by the way, another Die Hard movie came out later on, I was like, how come they don't put Sam Jackson back in the movie? Like, come on.
Well, you know what? And when you look at the first Die Hard, you know the other black guy in the movie was Sergeant Al Powell from Family Matters.
He was great.
So in some ways, Sam kind of replaced him as the
black character,
right? You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was necessarily significant that the person had to be black.
No.
But I do think in the first case, I think in Die Hard with a Vengeance, it's obviously significant that he's black because that plays into the dialogue, right? You know, that's a big part about either
right because that's how they meet. He has a sign that says "I hate the N-word," but you would think Sam would just flip out and try to kill him, but actually he wants to prevent a white cop from getting killed in Harlem, so he's actually trying to help him.
Right.
So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then the
But I do think that character actually doesn't want to see. He's a good guy. He really that's what I love about the Sam Jackson character.
The way he talks to his nephews.
Right. It's funny because we talked about
respect.
We talked about what was it? Changing Lanes, where I get frustrated because he kind of gets a lot more permission in Die Hard with a Vengeance because he's got the police behind him to be as bad, like to be who he needs to be, and that's what I like about this movie. In this case, he gets the permission to be, to yell and pick up a gun and do what he has to do. He doesn't know how to use a gun, but it's great. I love this character. It's great.
No, I like the line too, where he goes like, "I don't like you because you're going to get me killed," and Bruce Willis was like, "You don't like me because you're a racist." He's like, "What?"
Yeah. No, there's a lot of
it's definitely a great movie. All right, and then number one we got Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction. Samuel L. Jackson's name is Jules Winfield. He's a hitman, and obviously this is the movie where it all started in terms of his career taking off to the next level. So much has been said about this. I think the most interesting thing is when he was going for the audition, they were thinking about using the bartender, but it wasn't until he delivered the Ezekiel 25:17 speech where they knew they were going to go with Sam, and because he was so good, they knew they were going to end the movie with that same dialogue, but this time it would have a totally different meaning behind it. But yeah, the funny thing about Pulp Fiction is that Sam is really not the star of the show until that diner scene. He really is a supporting actor. There's really not a lot of them until you get to that Bonnie situation.
Yeah, we've talked about this, but I love the Bonnie situation. To me, he is the star of the Bonnie situation.
Well, I think there's three different parts. I think Travolta's the star of Marcellus Wallace's wife. Bruce is the star of the Gold Watch, right. And then Sam is the star of the Bonnie situation. Yeah. So there really is no supporting actor. In my opinion, it's just three lead actors.
Well, what I would say, more big picture, is that all the other movies we talked about may not happen if it's not for this movie. Everything kind of blooms from Pulp Fiction, even though his career started way before this.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing Do the Right Thing, Jungle Fever, True Romance, but he never got that, like, maybe Fresh was the first time he got it, but he never got that major role on the mainstream level.
Right. And Tarantino makes him look like a star. He looks like a movie star on the level of any great movie star that ever came before, whether it was John Wayne. The way he shoots him, I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance, and the camera's like looking up at him. It really he becomes a movie star in this movie, and it's yes. I mean, the movie, a lot gets made out of it, but the truth be told, for people who I kind of grew up in the '90s, even though that's the decade I identify with mostly. In terms of the culture.
Well, I would say you're more of a 1999 to 2002.
Right.
Like, as far as you kind of growing into a teenager into an adult. I
immediately think of an idiot with a backwards red baseball cap going rolling,
Fred
rolling,
Durst.
rolling. As soon as you mention those years, so I have to kind of push that out of my mind.
Or Slim Shady.
But that's a little bit better. At least he's got a lot more talent. But I'm just thinking of, I still identify with the 90s in that sense, and this movie truly captures something special about
From the 90s.
about that time.
How revolutionary this
Yeah.
movie was
Yeah.
to rap, to wrestling, to pop culture. I mean, everything seemed to get a little bit better after 1994.
And I will say this: I've spoken to younger people in their early who don't get it. They don't understand why it's such a good, and that's fine. They
Oh,
don't-
well, what about Ricky? He's like, still don't get the movie with Travolta. What's...
Right? It's a different film. It's
Well,
not,
I said, Ricky, all you got to do is watch it about 20 times, and eventually you will get it. It took me at least 10 times to really get it.
It took me 3 or 4 times. I agree, but now it's like that. It's an old catcher's mitt. It just like you put it on, and it always feels right.
Right.
You know, it's not. It always feels. Right.
We've talked about the movie ad nauseum. No, I'm just joking. No. It was Pulp Fiction was great. But I will say this: I feel like the Ordell Roby character. I think I like that character a little bit more. But I will agree that Pulp Fiction is probably bigger impact. Definitely the better movie. But I want to end with this, and I don't even know. Maybe rest in peace to our friend Kevin Chisholm. I think it was my birthday a couple years ago. We sat down and we talked to him. And we were having a debate about who's the better actor, Samuel L. Jackson or Denzel Washington. And he was like, oh, by far, Denzel, not Samuel L. Jackson, motherfucker. He was kind of like saying Samuel L. Jackson, all he would do is say motherfucker. But I did tell him, I said that, well, you know what, though? I think Sam Jackson was a better fit for those Tarantino roles than Denzel would have been. And I still agree with that. I think Sam is just, I think maybe because Tim and Tarantino, they both from Tennessee, they got the Tennessee-California connection. There's something very special about the way Sam, does the Tarantino dialogue. And so who would you pick, Denzel or Sam, looking back on it? Or would you agree with what I just said?
I think I do agree with what you said. I think that when Denzel does a movie, it's a Denzel movie. But when you're in a Tarantino movie, when you're in a Spike Lee movie, it's their movie. But that's the thing with
So
Denzel.
Denzel overshadows the director.
Yeah, he overshadows everything. Denzel is a phenomenon.
Control.
I think Denzel Washington is an absolute phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think you can say the same thing about Sam Jackson, but I think that when Sam Jackson's in a movie, he's playing a character that is a crucial part of the movie. I think when Denzel is in a movie, the whole cast, crew, everything about it, the whole world around it, it becomes about that the Denzel thing, kind of like Stallone, Schwarzenegger.
That's the other thing.
Bruce Willis,
if you notice, anytime Denzel or Stallone is in a movie, it's Stallone. Daylight. It's Denzel Washington. Training Day.
Their movie.
It's their movie. Yeah.
It's not the same thing with Sam Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. It could be
Django
Django Unchained and Samuel L. Jackson at the end of it. That's the difference.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So I think that, Sam Jackson still does those types of roles, whereas Denzel doesn't. If Denzel's in something, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it seems like Denzel's a little bit more picky about doing what he wants. It seems like Sam just loves to, like Kevin Durant loves to play basketball, like Samuel L. Jackson needs to act. Mm-hmm. It's just something he has to do. It's like an escape for him.
And I'm sure there's a business reason for that. I'm sure there's a contract thing.
A lot of it has to do with the agent. Yeah.
I bet
maybe eventually you reach the point like with Stallone and Denzel where I'm not saying yes unless I'm the marquee name, like the mistake that Lawrence Fishburne made where he ended up screwing himself for not taking Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, that's a whole other
That's a whole different story. But hey, we'll end it here. That was the top 20 Samuel Jackson video. I had to try to get, how did it come out, you think?
Oh, I thought it came out great.
We were a little bit hesitant to do the video for a couple months, but because some of them we couldn't really remember. Plus, this is a tough list too because he's done so many movies. It's like, how do you narrow it down to the ones where you could consider it his movie? But I thought the list was okay. So we'll end it there. All right.